Hello, everybody. Welcome into the inaugural edition of Chop Talk. I am your host, Chop Odong, and I am brought to you by the one, the only DFS Army, your one-stop shopping for all things DFS, from NFL to MMA, where we have it covered from 20 coaches for all of the sports, another 20 contributors, 1,500 plus members, always chatting DFS 24/7 and looking to help you become a better DFS player. From tools to content to customized projections, optimizers, and the coaching, it's our commitment and community that delivers personality in an impersonal world, intended to bring you up and coach you up. We love cheering on our GPP winners, and we love looking towards the sweat, towards the end of the night, when we would almost rather take our $2 double up and pitch it to watch that guy win the $10,000 grand prize. Don't believe me? Check out our wall of wins. From all of the six-figure winners that we have and have had, $50,000 winners on up, scroll down $20,000. You can scroll down as far as you want to go. If I bring you all the way down this list, you're going to find I get all the way back into 2017, into February, March, and April, all the way down to January of 2017 when we built this page. We have a ton of winners up and down this leader line. The track record is there. The coaching and the advice is solid. The community's commitment to you is also there. So take a look. Click on the link in the comments section. Click like, click subscribe. Give me a shout out. That way we know that what we're bringing to you matters and what we're bringing to you works. We're just trying to give back to the community that's given us so much. I know that if I hadn't personally found Kevin's blog a few years ago and received some of the coaching and some of the help from our other coaches that are in the DFS Army, I wouldn't even have this platform to bring any of this information out to you. What I want to do today, as we're gearing up for MLB, is show you how we're going to approach the MLB season from DFS Army, or how I'm going to approach it. I've got a lot of things that are coming that are being revamped that I can't show you yet that are exciting on the inside for the VIPs. What I want to show you, though, is what I tend to do and talk to you a little bit about how I do it. I have an article called Chin Music that comes out every day, Monday through Friday, pretty much every day anyway, and shows you at a glance the slate and how to start breaking it down. We start talking about the hitters and the pitchers and the home and the away teams, ballpark factors, weather, things like that we're going to take into consideration to help point us in the right direction as we start our research for the day. The pitchers, we're going to go through, and it'll look a little bit different this year, but the pitchers, we're going to try and cut it down to 2 to 3 quality pitchers. We're going to use things like Vegas odds, K-score, and the opponent matchup, as well as we're going to start targeting pitchers. If you don't know what K-score is, you got to come inside, be a VIP, and figure that out. Soft pitching that we're going to attack, we use Sierra for that a lot. I'll talk about that in key stats in a minute. And we're going to start taking a look at what bats are in a good position to take advantage of a vulnerable pitcher. And we're going to probably stack those bats up against them. Implied run totals, we're also looking for teams that are slated to score a bunch of runs. Are we playing in Coors? Are we playing a day game in a hitter's ballpark? Or are we playing a night game in San Francisco where the marine layer tends to bring balls crashing back down to earth? We need to know these things in order to build better lineups and put the odds in our favor of posting good scores that night. Whether it be 50-50s or whether it be GPPs, you need to know what contest you're playing and how to go about attacking it, and we can show you that inside DFSArmy.com. What I want to show you is the optimizer that we talk about, our domination station, how this thing is geared up for baseball. You would select MLB, you would select your slate, you would let it load. Of course, it doesn't have Vegas odds or anything in it just yet, but you've got a bunch of things that you can play with here from positions. You want to just talk about second baseman, there you go. You got a salary range. I don't want anyone under 3,000. You might set that, or anyone over 8,000. You might set that. Fantasy point range, salary cap, numbers of lineups. You want to build 200 lineups, go for it. You want to stick to just 1, 2, 3, whatever, go for it. You can also manually enter it like that and build 3 lineups. The optimal mode versus tournament mode, fantasy points versus unique players to the lineup. You want to create a very, very tight core of players. You might only have 2 unique players. Everybody else pretty much the same. You want to spread out over those 10 lineups and have a ton of different players and get a big wide spread and cover that player pool. You might have 5 unique players. It all depends on how you want to build your lineups. We don't sell you lineups. We don't hand you lineups at DFSArmy.com. Instead, we teach you what it takes to build good lineups, and then we take the training wheels off and we send you out in the street hoping you don't get hit by a bunch of traffic. That's just how we roll inside DFS. We'd rather you take pride in your work and you win the prize yourself instead of go buy some cheap lineup from some track record sucker from Chump Chump out there on the internet that doesn't even know what he's doing and probably just got out of his mother's basement yesterday. That's not cool, man. We'd rather you take pride in your own work. If you want to select batting order, you can come out here and take, I don't want anyone over the 5th place batter in the lineup. I'm a cash game player and I want to make sure that I get as many at-bats as possible. I don't want an 8-hitter. I don't even want him being looked at by the optimizer, even if he's in a good spot. That's just the rule that I'm going to run. If that was me, I would uncheck those boxes. If it's not me, or I'm a GPP player and was wanting an 8, 9, 10, 1 wrap stack or something, I would do that. If I only want people that are confirmed in the lineups, I can select that. Watch this. If I enable the hitter stacking, what I can do is I can create a 4x4 stack by going 4 players here, 4 players here, and if I want it to be 50% from St. Louis, 20% from New York, 20% from the Chicago Cubs, then I can select those ratios as I want, click optimize, it'll throw out all of those lineups and give me the best matches per the projections that we feed the system when we get the projections loaded in. We're going to have DFS Army grades. You're going to be able to control your fantasy points. You don't think he's going to score that many? You might bump him down to 9.5 points. That's going to affect the number of lineups that Nick Castellanos is going to be in. You've got exposure controls, from minimum controls to max. If I'm overwhelming you, you've got to come in, you've got to see the tutorial. It's not as hard as I'm making it sound. You've got your salary organization, your fantasy point multipliers, if you look for those, who's in a good value spot tonight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to have some basic key stats. We're also going to have player cards. When we come in here into these, we're going to be able to click on the names and kick out a player with some basic stats and some basic news and information for you to do a little bit of research inside there. We've got the little smiley face here. No, this is not an emoji. This is how we bump our lineups as well. If you don't want to control it like I did by manually changing that fantasy point score, you can bump him up by 15%, 10%, 5%, whatever, bump him down. And you can bring him in and take him out of your lineups as you're building. This is the most customizable tool you can find in the optimizer world, and it's all here at dfsarmy.com for you. This sucker started crushing cash lineups last year when we released it. It is on even more steroids now. This is how you're going to put yourself apart and build yourself the winning lineups with the help of the tools and the content that we produce inside DFS Army. When we talk about chin music, I wanted to walk through how I come up with some of those ideas and some of those basic parameters at which I'm pointing you in the direction. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to walk through an outline with you. It's an article that I have on the website under the MLB strategy. It's a free article, MLB strategy tab, about page 3. You can go back and look for an article called The Hard 9. Look for the picture of Jackie Robinson sliding in, stealing home base. That's the table of contents, and you can go through the 3 or 4 articles that I have up, and I'm going to start working on those here shortly, and we're going to start releasing a few more of those articles to you as they get released. We've already done scoring. We talk about the differences between Fanduel and DraftKings. We talk about where we're going to go and 2 pitcher sites versus 1 pitcher sites, all that stuff. I don't need to rehash that with you. You can find the article. Cash versus GPP. I'm a little different animal. I consider 3-man, 5-man, triple up, quintuple up, a little bit more cash than most people who just call them GPPs. I believe that they're not GPPs because I win them with cash lineups all the time. I win 100-man leagues with cash lineups all the time. The reason that I do that is I actually build what's called a hybrid lineup. It's not exactly cash in that it's non-stacking. It's not exactly GPP in that it kind of blends the two together. It builds, I use my correlation within the best matchups, which is oftentimes the chalk, and I use that correlation to start breaking myself off from the field. Now I may load up on Washington Nationals or Colorado Rockies, but not very many people stack the holy hell out of them. Instead, they may take a couple and run away in cash games. I'm not stacking a ton in cash games, but I'm kind of using those principles, a little bit of both, to build something in the middle, something that has the floor of a cash game, but has the upside to do some damage. Is it going to win a 30,000 player GPP? No, it's not built for that. But if you did win a 30,000 player GPP, guess what? The 50-50 line in that cash game is in the rearview mirror. You passed that a long time ago, and you should have been in it too. It's going to help you win more money. It's going to help preserve your downside on those days when you build for GPPs and you don't hit the 20% mark that it takes to cash, but you did hit the 50% mark and you hit your 50-50s. If you structure that accordingly by using the ladder system that I have in those strategy tabs as well, you're going to find out that you can build for both cash floor and upside and win on your losing days. That's the concept that I like to teach our VIPs inside DFS Army. When we look at the stats, things like WOBA, OBP, OPS, all of these are the ones that we are after when we're talking about which stats we want to pay the most attention to. WOBA is a weighted on-base average. It's not just on base. It's not just power numbers like your ISO would be, or numbers like that. I break that stuff down for you, and I can tell you in that article, in that third article, Critical Stats, I can tell you what each of these mean. I like to focus on Sierra when I'm looking at pitchers for going against the grain and finding pitchers that are pitching, their ERA is lower than they should actually be pitching. And I like to stack against those guys because I'd like to be there and be in position on the day that they start to blow up again. Vegas tells us an awful lot about what we're looking for. We're going to break that article down next, teach you how to read those money lines and teach you where to pay attention. We're going to tie that in with ballpark factors down the road. We're going to teach you how to knock that pitching out, narrow it down to 2 to 3 pitchers per slate so that you don't have to worry about all those other guys that are dead to you. And you're not just focused on the Kershaws and the Scherzers. You're going to have a value pick in there. You're going to have a lot of good stuff to pick from. We're going to teach you how to attack that pitching. Again, it gets into the Sierra versus the ERA. And we're going to teach you position, value, and batting order. Position value, your first baseman generally does a lot of your production. Your outfield is generally deeper than your other spots. Your middle infielder is usually a spot for value, but due to positional scarcity, some nights he's the most important guy on your team and you got to pay up to get him. It's a supply and demand game. You can pay up when nobody else is on that particular player. Everybody else wants to punt that second baseman. You can pay up for him and put yourself in the better spot. Take your value out of the outfield where you've got an oversupply based on the demand and the prices tend to go down. Learn how to read those situations. Come inside DFS Army and let me teach you. Let us teach you. Batting order is important because just like a guy sitting in the corner chucking 3-ball after 3-ball after 3-ball, the batting order, the guy who gets more at-bats generally has more opportunity to score your points. So in your cash games or even in your GPP lineups, you want to pay a little special attention to where that guy's hitting in the order. Your 1, 2, 3 spots are generally your better hitters. Your 6, 7, 8 spots generally not. Your 3, 4, 5, 6 hitters are generally the power hitters and the meat of your order, and you need to be able to use those accordingly. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you need to become a VIP inside DFS Army. BVP and stacking, BVP works for you and against you. BVP is one of those areas where we're looking at a little bit smaller sample size, but we're trying to see if that hitter sees the ball well out of a particular pitcher's arm or arm slot. In those scenarios, we can find guys that absolutely tend to crush a certain pitcher, and we can get on him when the rest of the industry is off of him. And then again, we'll talk a little bit more about stacking, whether we do 2-man stacks, 3-man stacks, 4-man stacks, all that kind of stuff necessary in baseball to get you over that hump and start winning those 10, 20-man, 100-man leagues and even GPPs. And when to avoid that when you're in your cash games, and how much of it do I avoid versus how much of it do I take on. All of that good stuff comes in to one of those articles in play that's down the road. Weather, rain delays, rainouts. Get off those pitchers when the weather is questionable. You cannot afford to have that pitcher only come out for 2 innings, get yanked when the tarp comes on the field, and never come back out because the pitching coach doesn't want to damage his arm. You need to know those situations and pay attention to the weather forecasts so that you know which spots contain the most risk. And in a tournament, you might want to gamble on it when the weather forecast is for a 70% chance of rain, but our weather guy inside DFSArmy.com tells you it's not really anything to worry about because the storms will be cleared by first pitch. That's another scenario you need to be very, very good at pegging. When it comes to hitters, it's not quite the factor unless the game's going to be an early rain out. It's just one of those things. So hitters can kind of come and go, plug back in the lineup. It's the pitchers you really got to worry about. And of course, variance. Variance is just, this game, baseball is just like hockey. It's crazy. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Long winning streak, long losing streaks. We lower the percentage of our bankroll sometimes because of the volatility so that we can last longer. Because we're trying to last a longer period of time so that we can then hit that big GPP score and really turn us into profitable players over time. Your cash format is designed to kind of grind your bankroll, keep you steady, keep you eking out small victories here and there so that you can then keep that bankroll intact so that you can blast out a big GPP win and you don't have to go down to your last $5 and not know what to do with it because you still got that $100 or $200 on the site that you had to begin with, and you can keep playing $20 and $30 a night as opposed to just $3 a night. It increases your chances of hitting those bigger GPPs. That's what we teach you inside DFS Army. With all of that up and down, you need to stay the course and manage that bankroll. We have a couple of great articles on bankroll management, and honestly, we need to understand that the edge is very, very small in baseball. The volatility is very, very high. When that volatility is very high and that edge is very small, you need to look at the coin flipping video that I put out on YouTube, and you need to understand that even over 160 game sample, that's just not much. When your edge is small, your variance is high. You can go on large runs flipping a coin, heads, 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 and then all of a sudden it flips and goes tails, 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 tails. At the end of the season, I flipped 160 coins. At the end of the season, I had 55% of them were heads, 45% of them were tails. It's well within the parameters of darn near 50-50, but it was leaning towards heads. If I flipped it a million times, it'd be much closer to 50-50. So in that long baseball season, it's still a very small sample size. It's not winning streaks, losing streaks are part of the game. They're not going to be indicative of your ability to play daily fantasy baseball. I am one of the only people that will tell you that. Most other people will tell you, sure, you can win, sure, you can. I don't know if you can or can't. What I can tell you is you don't know. I don't know. None of us are going to know until we played this game for 2, 3, 4 years, and we pile in enough of a sample size that we know. Bankroll management, contest selection, plug into the Army, plug into the ladder system. To be honest with you, that's a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to cover, what we're going to be talking about inside DFS Army, where the coaching is always there to help you become a better player. If this interests you, click the link in the comments section. Use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Get that 10% discount. Get in here before opening day. Unlock the optimizer. Unlock all of the tools and spreadsheets that we have coming at you. Unlock the content articles, and most importantly, unlock the camaraderie, the community that brings out a personal touch to an impersonal world, and most importantly, the community that is rooting you on. That's what we're all about inside DFS Army. Thanks for listening today, guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you in a couple of days when we kick off baseball.